So it's a different type of show, isn't it? All these voices from the left, but we believe in freedom of speech. Well, we're meant to say that. I'm not sure if I do, really. But anyway, Tim Knight holds Emmy and Sigma Delta Chi Awards for journalism. He's worked for 3 newspapers, ABC, NBC, PBS, and CBC. He's a former producer of the National Executive Producer, lead trainer, CBC TV Journalism Training. Welcome to you. They have journalism training at the CBC.
Thank you. It's about the only place that does have journalism training.
Really?
Actually. Yes. Not as much as when I was doing it, though.
Yeah.
And probably not as well.
I'm almost certain of that, because I think the standards have certainly declined. But let's talk about balance and objectivity.
Yeah.
And both of those words are so loaded with context.
Yes, indeed.
Who's saying them. And I've spoken to enough people on the left that they believe they're not treated fairly. But it does seem to me in this country, for example, that there are groups within Canadian society who are not well represented in media. Would you agree?
I would say yes, particularly people of colour. And I've been watching you a little bit. I think religion, too. We don't cover religion.
Right.
It's, I think, a reaction to perhaps religious overextension, if I could put it lightly, over the many centuries. Much like the Quiet Revolution in Quebec.
Right.
When they
wasn't much TV, of course, in the 1720s. But
no, but we do have long memories.
Right. But when you say people of colour,
yeah.
I think that's possibly a separate issue, because the colour of your skin does not dictate politics or view. And actually, I would argue that today there are huge numbers of people in Canada who are hosting shows who are, if you want to use the phrase, people
There
of
is, but
colour.
you were talking about covering.
Right. We're covering, and we tend to cover certain people when there's violence.
Yes, precisely.
Yes, I would agree with that. But let's talk about left and right. Now, give you an example. In the past 48 hours, over a 24-hour period, there were 2 Catholic churches arson attacked. There was a pipe bomb in Brampton. And there was, and it's interesting you're looking up like that, because I think most people would agree. And there was a fire-bombing in
I wasn't looking up
Toronto.
to the heavens.
No, in incredulity. But you probably weren't aware of this. And another church, in fact, the church that my brother-in-law used to be a priest at, tens of thousands of dollars of damage.
Yeah.
No, it could be coincidence. But you'd think in 24 hours in Greater Toronto, 2 Catholic churches specifically targeted. That's a major issue, and I would argue if that had been, say, 2 synagogues or 2 gay centres, rightfully we would have said, my golly, what's going on here? You probably were not even aware that had happened.
No, I wasn't.
And I'm not condemning you for that.
Thank you.
Media is very selective in what it thinks is newsworthy.
I think media has always been very selective in what it sees as newsworthy. You know, you have that morning meeting in most newsrooms, and the day starts again. And you have a list of stuff, and somebody has to decide, okay, we're going to cover this, we're not going to cover that. Or X, we've covered it a lot, so let's not cover it anymore, type of thing. There is no conspiracy, however, I would seriously suggest.
No, there really is.
The days does start again every day for newspapers and television and radio, and I think that's one of our faults. We don't have memory. We don't have sufficient memory.
Okay, now, there are very few conspiracies. People are too dumb and too talkative for any conspiracy to work. But there are, if you like, implicit conspiracies of lack of information or indifference, or just socialization. The people who go to meetings, for example, at the CBC, generally, there won't be a huge number of serious Roman Catholics and conservative evangelicals or even political conservatives. The vast majority would be liberal NDP type, fairly secular, fairly progressive. The same applies to the BBC, where I used to work, and I think most American networks. Doesn't that lead, though, not through malice perhaps, sometimes, but generally, does it not lead to a one-sided coverage of issues of politics and faith and culture?
I think it does to a certain degree, Michael. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. The truth is that a whole lot of people who go into journalism, our profession, are liberal arts people, as opposed to the science department or any of those, or business. And it is more natural for them, it feels more natural for them to have a strong social conscience. But you've got to balance it off with the fact that almost all the owners and bosses are conservatives.
Are they really?
So when your network, the National Post, HuffPost, which I blog for at the moment.
I know the owners of all of the ones you mentioned, and they're conservative on some issues, but on many issues, let's talk about social issues such as life issues, morality, sexuality, they'd all be fairly liberal.
Well, again, it depends on your definition of liberal. I'd like to see liberal from the dictionary definition of people favoring social advancement and cultural justice.
Really?
Yes,
Is that what liberal means?
That's what it says in
I thought it was
dictionary.
freedom-based. However,
no, freedom. I'm sorry, I left out the word freedom. Yes,
yeah.
freedom and the others. Right. Yes.
Well, let me give you a couple.
But you wouldn't disagree with any of that, would you?
Oh, I'm a terrible reactionary. But let me be subjective here. And the
you
subjective.
didn't answer the question.
Well, it's a very big question. It depends how you define progress and social justice.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
In the 1930s, there were various groups known as social justice, social action groups, and they were fascist. It's a term that they took over, so it depends what you mean. However, a school of journalism like Ryerson, for example, which is very influential, and there are some good teachers there, but I'll give you one example. A young man wrote to me, he went into the school one day, and a professor there said, he said to the professor, "I saw you on TV Ontario last night with Michael Coren. He really got the better of you." And the woman said, "I hate that man. I hate that man. I know that he cheats on his wife. He chats up women at parties." Now, I'm way too ugly to cheat on my wife, but
do you chat up women at parties?
You know, it's such a horrible thing to say. Yeah. Completely untrue. Yeah. And this guy wrote to me, and I could have had a child at the university. That was a very influential professor. I remember another incident.
What was his name?
Or
her name?
Her. I won't say it. I'll tell you afterwards. But another incident where the same-sex marriage issue, when it wasn't resolved, at least legally, someone from the CBC called me and said, "Would you come on Sunday morning to talk about this?" Yeah. And it was to show a gay couple getting married, and the party, and then I would come on and say, "This is why this is a bad thing." And I said, "Well, it seems rather tendentious, but also, I'm busy on Sunday morning." And he said, "Well, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, the reason you've asked me, because I'm Catholic, and I go to this place called a church, and these are small examples, but over and over again, ignorance of, misunderstanding of."
But don't we all have misunderstandings constantly, particularly with people we don't know and we don't understand?
Isn't our job as journalists to try and empathize and understand?
Yeah, but that wasn't journalism being practiced. That was conversation you were talking about.
Well, he was the gatekeeper for CBC shows. You know, I'm actually...
You have to tell me who he is before I can
I can't remember his name. You know, again, we're being subjective. I'm actually going on the CBC, believe it or not. It's a miracle quite soon. But, well, Claire Hoy. Claire Hoy is someone who wrote the most successful book in the history of Canadian non-fiction.
Yes.
Never interviewed on the CBC when his book came out.
Oh, maybe he didn't want to be.
He did.
Now, as an author myself, and you are, you want to be interviewed.
Peter Zalski, God rest his soul and all that, but he once told me, "You'll never be on my show." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I disagree with your politics."
We're attacking the CBC now or Ryerson?
Well, both. I'm open. I think the CBC is a particular problem because of the funding issue.
So do I.
Toronto Star can be as liberal as it wants. It's its money, do what you want to do. But when it comes to public funding, that's when I think you should at least aspire to objectivity.
I was a CBC journalist for 16, 17 years. Mm. And I can promise you, Michael, that there is a theme of getting as close as humanly possible to objectivity that runs through the CBC still. I don't think it's as strong as it was then, but and sets the tone for most of the other newsrooms in this country. They have a very strong sense of public service. Now, you might well disagree about what public service is, but I think you will agree that having a sense of public service is a hell of a lot better than merely doing a job like journalism purely for money. Would you not?
I think public service, it should be the very center of everything we do if we have any sort of public role.
I absolutely agree.
I wish you were still there because you seem a terrific guy, but I can't agree with you that there's still a commitment to public service and objectivity. But on that, we can agree to disagree.
Okay. Now, I have attacked CBC very strongly in my HuffPost column a number of times. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not biased to one side.
No, you're a tribute to the corporation. I wish there were more of you there. Thank you so very much.
That's far too kind of you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Later, the case for baby killing, especially if the babies are female, black, brown or disabled. Next, an argument for men marrying men and women marrying women. And it's not on Oprah or Ellen DeGeneres.